The meeting of Dido and Aeneas that Virgil tells us about is really interesting for a number of reasons. First and foremost, because it's an invention of Virgil. And what Virgil creates is a meeting between the two in which Aeneas, on his journey to Italy, ends up waylaid in Carthage. And the story of this is told, it starts at the end of Book 1 of the Aeneid, and then picks up the interactions of Dido and Aeneas pick up in Book 4. So Books 2 and 3 are devoted to Aeneas retelling the story of the Trojan War to Dido. But we have in Virgil's Aeneid then this very famous telling of a meeting that probably historically never took place. And that's assuming that these characters are even historical to start with. And there's a lot of debate about whether Dido is really just a kind of goddess figure, or whether there was in fact a legendary female founder who was in exile from Phoenicia. And it's probably a little bit of both. But the important thing to remember is that even the mythologies of these two characters make it impossible for them to have met. They lived in different times. So Virgil's meeting of the two is anachronistic. Aeneas was fighting in the Trojan War. He's a Trojan War refugee. The Trojan War is dated to somewhere between 14 and 1200 BC. Dido's life dates to several centuries later, so we're talking about the foundation of Carthage in 814. So it's just impossible, Aeneas would have had to have been several hundred years old by the time he met Dido. In Virgil, Dido's represented as the victim of a power struggle between two goddesses, between Juno and Venus. And she's forced, so it's not her own will, but really sort of through divine will, she's forced to fall in love with Aeneas and betray the memory of her dead husband. And so a lot of Book 4 is all about Dido abandoning the construction of her city and being a kind of in love, happy woman who has kind of lost her way. Aeneas eventually abandons Dido. His fate is to go on to Italy, and so he has to leave North Africa. He doesn't particularly want to, but he has to leave. And out of despair, Dido commits suicide. So a rather different treatment of Dido's character than what we get from some of our historical sources, where she is remembered as this noble and chaste founder of Carthage who makes the sacrifice to preserve the safety of her city. Thanks to Virgil's treatment, Dido is remembered in Virgil and in other literary sources as unchaste, as very much the woman who betrays her husband. Virgil represents that betrayal. And she, most of all, is remembered as the abandoned lover of Aeneas. And it's this literary portrayal that has tremendous influence on later writers, both in Latin and in vernacular languages. But there's another story to Dido, and that's sort of the interesting part about Virgil's invention of this meeting. And in class, we'll be talking about the love story of Dido and Aeneas and analyzing some aspects of that. And here you have a painting representing the meeting of Dido and Aeneas. So Dido's sort of sitting up regally on her throne with her attendants, Aeneas wearing his Trojan helmet, his military garb. It's apparently survived the journey quite well, meeting Dido in her palace.
Speaks not Aeneas like a conqueror? Oh, blessed tempest that did drive him in. Oh, happy sands that made him run aground. Henceforth you shall be our Carthage gods. Aye, but it may be he will leave my love and seek a foreign land called Italy. Oh, that I had a charm to keep the winds within the closure of a golden ball, or that the tyranny sea were in mine arms, that he might suffer shipwreck on my breast as oft as he attempts to hoist sail. I must prevent him, wishing will not serve. Go, bid my nurse take young Ascanius and bear him in the country to her house. Aeneas will not leave without a son. Yet, lest he should, for I am full of fear, bring me his oars, his tackles, and his sails. What if I sink his ships? Oh, he will frown. Better he frown than I should die of grief. I cannot see him frown. It may not be. Armies of foes resolved to win this town, or impious traitors vowed to have my life, affright me not. Only Aeneas' frown is that which terrifies poor Dido's heart. Not bloody spears appearing in the air presage the downfall of my empery, nor blazing comets threaten Dido's death. It is Aeneas' frown that ends my days. If he forsakes me not, I never die. For in his looks I see eternity, and he'll make me immortal with a kiss.